Medical Radiologic Technology to order. We'll start off with the time is 0902 a.m. and on September 23, 2022. Welcome, and then we'll start with the roll call.
Sure, Doctor. And just to go ahead and read for the record, this meeting will be open to the public at the above location and will proceed by video conference as allowed under Texas Government Code Section 155.127. The location above shall have two-way audio-video communication, which each of the other locations during the meeting. The president or presiding officer of the board will be physically present at the location and room listed above. And I believe the time is 9:02 a.m. and I can start the roll call. Dr. Khan.
Present.
Dr. Beckman.
Here.
Ms. Brandt.
Here.
Okay. Ms. Brown.
Here.
Ms. Landreth.
Here.
And Ms. Lutz is not able to attend today. Mr. Moran.
Here.
Ms. Parker.
Here.
And Ms. Waddell.
Here.
Okay, Dr. Khan, you do have a quorum and you can proceed.
All right, very good. We'll go to the next item, which is board member report. Anything to report from the board members? All right. In that case, we'll move on to item number 3, executive director report.
Sure, and I can cover that for Mr. Carlton, who is on military duty, and we can start with the budget update. Mr. Estrada.
Yes, thank you, Chris. Good morning, board members. So just a quick update on our budget. For fiscal year 2022, we were successfully able to execute 100% of our budget. Regarding revenue collections for fiscal year 2022, we exceeded 30% above what we had reported to the legislators that we were going to collect for the year. And then comparing that to the previous year, we collected just over 6% from last year. And just also to add, for the revenue report, I was able to update that report and include data from the last 10 years. So pages 4 and 5 will have that information for you. And you can see how the revenues that we've collected for the agency have increased over those years and the progression. And then also on that report at the bottom, I was able to break out collections by license type. So you'll also be able to see how the revenues differ year over year and how they've grown. And then for fiscal year 2023, I am still in the process of putting that budget together. Right now, this month, we're getting vendor quotes and finalizing contracts for services that we'll be having throughout the year. So once we have all those contracts finalized and executed, I'll have a better viewpoint of what our budget's going to look like, and I can separate that out by department. And then finally, our LAR was submitted back in July. We were able to meet with the Legislative Budget Board and the Governor's Office last month. They didn't have many questions regarding our legislative appropriations request, so that's great news for us. Pending any other questions from them, we're just right now in the process of getting ready for session beginning in January. So as more information becomes available, we'll share that information with you guys. Pending any other questions, I'll hand it back to you, Chris.
Any questions about the budget report? For the internal audit update, the internal auditors have met with us and they are going to be auditing the enforcement process. We're going to have to kind of meet with them to go over the parameters of that. Basically, they'll be looking from complaint to appeal and everything in between, but we will kind of, that's an awfully broad topic. So we'll probably be working with them to narrow that down a little bit. But that process we would normally be starting now, but because we will be moving in the next several weeks, we are pushing that back into January before we start with that. But that will be the audit. We do have an audit every year, an internal audit every year, and that's the topic we're going to be doing. The last item on the executive director's report is the building update. We are the last agency, along with the physician health program, still in the hobby building. Everybody else has moved. But we are not going to move until October 24th. We did want to, there were a few items on our punch list that we're asking them to work on. And we want to make sure the space is, ready to go when we get there. So we are going to be moving on October 24th. That date is not going to change again unless something, outside of the ordinary happens. So that will be our move date. We have our boxes. We're boxing up everything. This will be the last meeting we hold in the hobby building. In the new building we still call it the ISC room, but we don't really do ISCs in person anymore. So it really will be a boardroom, and that's where these meetings will be taking place in future, continuing virtual, hybrid, if we do ever have an in-person meeting again, if there's budget for that, and if that's what you all decide to do, it would be held in that room. So we can hold that right in our space, which is nice. And so there will be some period of downtime. So applicants, licensees, we don't have an exact idea of what that's going to be yet, but we will know in advance of October 24th. We'll get some information on the website, on our Facebook page, and share it with you all as well and the public. Just let you know, we're trying to minimize it as much as possible. I think the other agencies that have been moving have been down about a week. And just give as much notice as we can to people of that is what we're going to try to do. But we'll have more information on that as the IT and executive director have a chance to meet and discuss exactly what we need to do with that. That would complete the executive director's report unless there are any questions. Dr. Khan.
Thank you. We will move on to the next item, which is consideration and possible action regarding pending litigation.
And
Actually,
you go ahead,
I'm
Chris.
sorry.
I was going to say, we actually have the medical director report first. We snuck one in at the bottom of page 1 there, Dr. Khan.
Yep.
Have no worries. It won't take very long. Good morning, everyone. Just to let you know, we're doing very well with respect to experts with your licensees. They don't get into a whole lot of trouble requiring standard of care analysis. However, we do need some additional physician experts, and that can be in any discipline, from family practice and generalists to intensivists to surgeons. Anybody at all that you can pass on. Those experts are remunerated, although it's not commensurate with, it doesn't compare to what they can usually earn, but at least it is something that we can pay them. So it's entirely voluntary. If you have anybody practicing here in Texas or anywhere that with a Texas license who you think would do a good job, please pass those names on to me or Laura or Chris, and I'll go ahead and reach out to them. But thank you.
Thank you. All right, sorry about that. Now we will move on to Mr. Freshour on consideration and possible action regarding pending litigation.
And I will be much like Dr. Brett, not much to report. Your group of licensees doesn't sue you very much. We do have some cases, with Ms. Swanholman in litigation moving through some of your licensees, but nothing as far as appeals or anything of that nature that I have to report on. So with that, unless there's questions, it's a very mundane report.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Moving on to item number 6, Texas PHP program. And I
Sure. Yes, and Dr. Conning let you know that the physician health program did not have any cases for you this week. This meeting to report, but there is a program activity report under agenda item 6 in the C folder. If there are any questions about that, you can let me know. We can get those over to the PHP program. Otherwise, it doesn't need a vote. It's just there for your information.
All right. Very good. We will move on then to item number 7, discussion, recommendation, possible action regarding applicants appearing concerning eligibility.
Yes, we have 3 applicants that are scheduled to appear today. The first applicant is number 2533. This applicant is appealing an executive director determination. The applicant has not actively practiced as a medical radiologic technologist since May 2010. From August 2010 until October 2018, she did practice as an MRI technologist. She provided the following statement regarding her practice as a radiologic technologist. She said she took a break from working in October of 2018 before giving birth to her second child, and she became a stay-at-home mom, and her husband got out of the military and they relocated to Texas in August of 2019. She says during that time she was unemployed, but she obtained 59.25 CE credits to remain active and learning. She says if issued a license, her plan is to look for a full-time position in diagnostic radiology and MRI. Board staff did receive one CE certificate completed in July of 2019 for 27.25 ARRT Category A credits, and one certificate completed in July of 2021 for 32 ARRT Category A credits. Because the applicant has not actively practiced as a medical radiologic technologist administering radiation since 2010, which was approximately 11 years from the date of the application, the board staff made the following recommendation. She would need to comply by practicing for 12 months under a supervised temporary permit with submission of work log and evaluation at the end of the 12 months. This recommendation is based on the active practice remedy matrix created by the MRT board. She's appealing this recommendation and did provide a proposed modification to the active practice remedy. Her detailed statement is in the summary. She says that since this recommendation to remedy the active practice, she's been on 4 interviews and she's able to finally secure a PRN job in radiology with HCA Healthcare in the Houston Medical Center, in addition to her full-time job as an MRI technologist. The current difficulty she's encountering is securing the 20 hours per week in radiology due to budgeting. She says a lot of places cannot guarantee the 20 hours needed to count towards the active practice requirement. She's asking for the following modification: at least 10 hours per week for 80 weeks with the submission of the work log and the evaluation, rather than the original recommendation of the 20 hours per week for 40 weeks. So I do see applicant 2533 in the meeting. Applicant 2533, if you could unmute yourself. If you have an opening statement, you can present that at this time. And if not, then the MRT board members can begin asking you questions regarding your licensure application.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
My name is Joy Adamson. I would like to give you the disclaimer. I do have bronchitis, so if you hear me coughing or if I need to drink something, I am currently sick. The information you read on me is correct. I do work full-time as an MRI tech. I have never had any complaints for my registry for x-ray when I was an x-ray tech. I was a stay-at-home mom for a couple of periods during being a military spouse and moving here and relocating. I'm sorry. I'm actively going through a divorce. It's been going on for a little over a year now. And I have the requirements that you all, give me a second. The requirements that you recommended for me, I've been trying to make those in addition to keeping my full-time job. I live between 2 cities right now. So that's another issue with me finding employment that will hire me for x-ray, because I do travel work. I've been relocating to Katy, Texas. I originally lived in Cibolo, Texas, but since the divorce, originally my whole family was supposed to move here. My spouse has changed his mind, so I am still moving to Katy. I have a home in Katy. I have a home in Cibolo, and I spend 4 nights a week in Cibolo and 3 nights a week in Katy so I can work full time. It's been very difficult, and I'm still trying to complete these requirements that you all have selected for me. I have not tried to get out of it, just to have my situation kind of heard via person with my circumstances. I have no problem working. I'm a hard worker. My current employer knows about the situation. They know about my divorce. They know I did have a PRN job, and I love that job. It was a really nice place to work. So based off of what you all determined today, even if it's just to extend my period for me to secure another x-ray position, because right now it has expired July 18th, 2022. So I would need that to be extended if you all do decide to have me complete these active practice requirements. That is all.
And to clarify, applicant 2533, your application that you submitted expired on July 18th,
Yes, ma'am.
2022, because you did submit it on July 18th, 2021. We have extended your application to allow you to appear before the committee so that a determination can be made. And then if necessary, an extension could be approved by the board to allow you to comply with whatever the recommendation is following your appearance.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So I just have a few questions. You're currently working as an MRI tech, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so your job doesn't so I know some jobs require you to have an MRT to also be MRI tech, but the place that you're working at doesn't require that right now, correct?
Correct, sir.
And so in addition to your full-time MRI job, were you looking to have a part-time job as a rad tech?
I was originally in the past, if we got relocated to another state or another city, I would come back and apply for whatever license was required. When I came back to San Antonio, I did the process when it was time. Like it was the pandemic happened, so I had to delay my start of work. But it limits your opportunities also where you can work at if you don't have your X-ray license. And I want to have full potential to cross-train into CT and not only have to stick to this one modality. I've never, in the past, I've always had an X-ray license in addition to my MR registry and my ART for X-ray registry. I've never had this happen before to me. And I think it may have just been us being relocated, that notification that the governing bodies had switched and transitioned. Because if I recall, my Texas, I think it was Texas Department of Health, State Health Services, that license expired July 2014. We were living in Ohio at that time. It was a military move. But during that time also, I think that fall I had started working on base after I had a child and everything. So I'm never, and the base requirements are different. You just need your registry. So I didn't get an Ohio license. I had no clue how long we would be in Ohio, and that's the issue. We wouldn't know how long we would be stationed in these places. So I did what was needed to be able to work in those places at that time.
And you finished your training back in 2006, and then how long did you work as an MRT? Like how many years of MRT experience did you have prior to stopping being a radiology technologist and doing MRI?
4 years.
4 years, okay. And you've been out of practice for about 12 years as an MRT, correct?
My last position that where the MRI techs also did X-ray, that was at Northeast Baptist, and I think 2013 maybe.
Okay.
The other positions when I worked on base, it was dedicated MRI only, a different building, kind of away from the radiology department. And the same thing when I worked at Lackland Air Force Base. And most of military hospitals, the staff sergeants and the enlisted are the X-ray techs. They'll have some contractors, but for the most part, they have X-ray covered in those entities.
You said
So you were a military spouse. You never were actually in the military, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I was in the military. My husband got out the military July 2019 when we were relocated back here.
So when you were working on these bases, you were considered a contractor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, gotcha.
And you said that you can confidently like find a job where you can get 10 hours a week of supervised work as a MRT, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My position at HCA, in that situation, which was unfortunate, the hiring, the HR person, and everything that you all presented to me that I needed to present to them, I presented to them. I made sure that they had it. But I'm not sure what happened with her position, but the person that originally cleared me to work never disclosed with my department. Like we discussed it during my interview, and I discussed like it's paperwork I submitted to the HR that needs to be filled out and signed, and they were like, okay, that's fine. I guess back in May, the radiology director started looking at the details of it because it was a new HR person that took the other person's position. And she was like, hey, Joy, I think we have an issue. And she was like, I don't think we have enough hours to fit what they want you to have. And I explained to her also, and I sent her the emails, like I was very transparent about what was needed. And so she even contacted other directors that she knew at other hospitals to see if they had 20 hours or if they could, 10 hours here, 10 hours there. But no one had enough hours. And some of the techs that she said that in the other areas didn't feel comfortable signing me off because here I am as somebody that they don't know. So she wanted to keep me. I wanted to still work there, but they couldn't meet that work required, the 20 hours. So that's why I said, well, maybe we can modify the time and the amount of hours would still accomplish the same goal. So that's where we are with that. And I've still have actively been applying for jobs. I had an interview. I think I let Anthony know, like, hey, I have an interview today. What happens? Because it's after July 18th, and I've already had a position, but I was released from that. So in the last 14 days, I'm just looking at my Indeed.com jobs I applied for. I've applied for 5 jobs in the last 14 days, and I've been on 2 interviews. And I'm finding that to be an issue is the 20 hours a week. And some people have suggested maybe part-time jobs, and I've been looking into that too. It's just the part-time, what I'm finding the issue is being in between San Antonio and Katy for those. So.
Any other questions or comments from the board, or is there a motion?
And Dr. Khan and board members, you've got, flexibility, as Ms. Unterborn said, and I know y'all are familiar with it. You have the matrix, but you're not bound by that. You can give consideration to the unique situation or circumstances that in your discretion. Obviously, it's to ensure you've got a safe, competent practitioner with patient safety, what you think is necessary given this applicant's, background and description. So you've got a great deal of flexibility from that perspective. So, and if you make a motion or we need any clarity on it or anything like that, you know how that works. Y'all can propose something, make a motion, and then we as staff, if we need to give you any guidance, we will jump in.
And to elaborate on what Mr. Freshour is saying, just to let y'all know as a board, there hasn't been an incident where y'all have deviated from the active practice matrix to break it down into less hours for an extended period of time. So that precedent hasn't been seen before. But as Mr. Freshour said, as the board, you have the matrix that you created as a guideline. However, every applicant has their unique circumstances for y'all to consider in conjunction with the matrix that you've already established.
I would like to move to accept these modifications and let her move forward.
I second.
Okay, now to be clear, let's be clear. The modification is 10 hours a week. And do you want for the full 80 hours? Or I'm sorry, full 80 weeks? Or do you think there's some hours in between? The issue is 80 weeks is, is a long time for an extension, et cetera, that kind of thing. So I think from an administrative standpoint, perhaps the question is, if you were to allow the 10 weeks, what do you think is a sufficient time period to show competencies? And Ms. Unterborn, these would come with supervised, being supervised, there would be reports and those kinds of
Correct.
things related to the applicant's competency. So I throw that out there. If you want to do the 80 weeks, that just seems like kind of an excessively long time. But again, it's entirely up to you. And we obviously staff have no say, just want you to be mindful of the options and implications.
I appreciate that. So I would pass it over to Ms. Waddell or someone else who was chiming in to say how many hours or how many weeks makes sense.
I was going to ask that as well. Ms. Waddell, if you had a recommendation.
I would think, especially with the fact that it's never been an issue other than the time that she was out with, having her child. She's worked, she's stayed in the medical practice, she's around the patient side of what our job entails. All that's kind of in question here is the actual use of using radiation producing machines like CAT scans and x-ray machines. The fact that she's kept her foot in the door and she's actually found places that are willing to do the monitoring and the reports, because I know that's extra work on them. I would think the original 40 weeks and then just lowering it to the 10, I'm sure there's going to be places that need her more than 10 hours a week, but that's going to fluctuate depending on what their scheduling is. But as long as she's being monitored, I don't know if these are going to be 10-hour shifts or, 5 hours here, 5 hours there. That doesn't matter to us. I would think 40 weeks would still be plenty, even with the lesser hours.
And
okay. I'll let our two doctors chime in if they disagree.
Yes, I was going to say, and procedurally, once you're done with comments, procedurally, we'll need to go ahead and, it appears, potentially withdrawing the second and Ms. Landreth's motion, but we're not there yet, because I think perhaps, as you said, Ms. Waddell, Dr. Khan and Dr. Beckman may have some comments, Ms. Brandt, and the other members of the board.
Well, I agree with I think 10 hours and over 40 weeks. I don't see a reason to extend the length of time. It's 40 weeks in a 12-month period, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that sounds, just keep that time period, but just decrease the hours from 20 to 10.
Yeah, I agree with that. And once again, I think we're going to see more cases like this, since the MRI component's getting attached to the MRT component in a lot of facilities. Thank you.
Okay. And if that is then acceptable to your committee, Dr. Khan, I think Ms. Landreth, and I was Ms. Waddell, did you second the motion, ma'am?
Yes, I
and
did.
I think Ms. Waddell, you would have to propose to withdraw your motion. Ms. Waddell, you'd have to agree to withdraw your second, and then you can make the new proposal, Ms. Landreth. So why don't we do, I guess this is the Texas two-step times two. We need you to move to withdraw your motion, and then we have to have Ms. Waddell agree to withdraw her second. So let's do that.
I withdraw my motion.
And Ms. Waddell,
I'll withdraw my second.
All right. Now, Ms. Landreth, the second part of the two-step, do you have and Dr. Khan, I think now you can call if there is another motion to be considered by your committee.
Mr. Freshour, before that, I do want to remind the committee that this is an appeal. So your motion should begin with either grant the appeal and X, or deny the appeal and X. So please make sure the motion starts with either the grant or deny of the appeal, please.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Unterborn.
All right, since the first motion has been withdrawn, is there another motion?
I would like to move to grant the appeal of applicant 2533 and modify our requirements to 10 hours over 40 weeks.
So to
And I'll
clarify,
second that.
that was to grant the appeal, and the applicant must practice at least 10 hours per week for 40 weeks in a 12-month period.
In a 12-month period with supervision, yes.
All right, we need an official second.
I second that.
All right, we have a motion to grant the appeal with the modified provisions by Ms. Landreth, seconded by Ms. Waddell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Applicant 2533, you'll be sent an email from board staff that will contain a separate Teams meeting link that you can leave this meeting, click on that one to join, and board staff will be able to answer any questions about the motion that you just heard, what steps to expect next, documentation from that your analyst will provide, etc. So please be on the lookout for that email and join if you have any questions for board staff.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Are y'all ready for the second applicant? Okay, this is applicant number 2548. This is a referral, not an appeal, by the executive director. Applicant 2548 is a non-certified radiologic technician applicant that has not actively practiced since completing their NCT program in April of 2011. She provided the following statement regarding her practice in the field, as well as her practice plans if licensed. She says since 2012, she's been employed by a Dr. Gregory Smith with the title of receptionist, and she did shadow the X-ray department every day. She left Dr. Gregory Smith in January of 2021 and is now employed with urgent house calls, and they are opening an urgent care that will have a C-arm, which is the reason why she's trying to get the NCT. She did provide a certificate of completion for 15.25 category A CE credits completed in February of 2022. And because the applicant had not practiced as a non-certified radiologic technician since 2011, approximately 11 years from date of the application, board staff provided the option to either refer to appear before the committee, or she could enroll in and successfully complete a board-approved NCT program to remedy the active practice issue. This is based on the matrix created by the MRT board. She has chosen to appear before the committee rather than redo the program. So applicant 2548, if you can unmute yourself, and if you have an opening statement, you could present that at this time. And if not, then the licensure committee will proceed with asking you questions regarding your application.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. So yes, I did complete an LMRT program in 2011. I never took the exam, so I'm not sure if that's an option. I did work with Dr. Gregory Smith. He's an ortho, and now I'm here with the urgent care. So that's where I'm trying to figure out how to go about and do things.
What exam is it that you didn't take?
The LMRT.
The LMRT,
So
okay.
we did the program. Our teacher got fired in the middle of all of that. So we were having like substitutes. There was no instruction. We were all young kids at the time. So none of us did anything about it. So we are thinking like, we completed it, we're done, we can work, and that's it.
I'm not sure without taking an exam that's an option, but I don't. Does anybody else have any more insight into that program than I do?
So I believe you're referring to the LMRT program.
Yes.
When individuals go through an LMRT program, they would be eligible to sit for the LMRT specialty exams offered through ARRT. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, so applicant went to Valley Grant Institute back in April 2011. That historically has been an LMRT and an NCT previous DISH approved program and now a TMB approved program. So that's what she's referring to regarding that specialty exam. But she has submitted for the NCT permit, which doesn't require the examination. If she were an LMRT applicant, that would require that, but she has submitted for the NCT application. Therefore, no examination is required for this particular permit.
My main concern is just the fact, and I feel terrible for you that program did that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of those programs that leave the people that take it hanging. It's just, it is what it is. But without any work history at all of taking x-rays and such an excessive period of time since you actually completed the course.
Well, I did take x-rays with Dr. Gregory Smith. I just always had somebody with me. Like, we always just had two people. And since we were working under him, like, they never asked for licensing. They never asked for anything like that. But I did do that for 10 years.
So what kind of doctor was this?
He's an orthopedic specialist.
Orthopedic, okay. So you were doing extremity.
Yes.
And such.
Mr. Morin, did you have your hand raised? Did you have a comment?
Yes. So my biggest concern with this whole situation here is what she has stated in her application, that she's going to work in urgent care that will utilize a C-arm device. So a C-arm device is usually something that utilizes a fluoroscopic system. Fluoroscopy is not something that is allowed to be done by an NCT, whether you complete the program or not.
Okay.
So that wouldn't be allowed even if you went back to the program, if you were just going to be an NCT.
Got it. Okay. So
Thank you, Scott. I wondered about that as well.
Because fluoroscopy is considered to be a dangerous and hazardous procedure.
Okay.
Right. LMRTs cannot perform fluoroscopy either.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And then just for the sake of like myself that I did do the program, can I apply to take the exam?
I don't know. You'd have to look at the guidelines for it, but I still think that there's going to be a big issue of the time gap and the fact that
but
you haven't
I didn't
actively
know,
practiced on your own in all this time.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if they count working under the direction or working side by side with another tech towards a registry.
Okay.
Has the staff here, have they given you the guidelines for work experience for what the NCT needs to do?
No, and at the urgent care, I'm not working as a tech. I'm actually the office manager. So I'm just trying to see, like, can I get this? Can I like to be safe or to, you know, at least, I mean, I did the program, I paid for the program, and then it just, you know, it's just a not good situation. So that's why I said, well, is it an option for me to take the exam, study and do that, since I've never taken it before? I know it said I had 3 chances to take it, and I've never done that before. So I don't know if just because it's been so long, if they're going to allow me to do that.
Yeah, you would just have to look at the guidelines and the prerequisites for the exam. It might say on there what the time period from completing a course to taking the time or taking the exam would be.
Got it.
Applicant 2548, just for clarification, were you ever issued a temporary LMRT by DISH at any point?
It was, so when I graduated, they gave us a certificate, like printed out, and it said, I want to say temporary NCT. Like it said LMRT on the certificate, but I want to say it said MCT.
Okay, but was that certificate received from your program gave you that, or
Yes.
Dish, you applied with Dish and Dish sent you a certificate with a?
No, it was
No,
through
okay.
the it was through the
Okay,
program.
thank you for clarifying.
Mhm.
So did you ever apply with when it was back with Texas Department of State Health Services?
Never. Mm-mm.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, sadly, some of these programs, they don't give the students good guidance, and I mean, that kind of stuff generally should happen as you're finishing up your program.
Yeah.
I think you're just going to need to explore what the time periods are, but I don't know that your work history is going to fit in with what the requirements are to get your NCT or your LMRT.
Got it. Okay.
I'm sorry, I know that sounds terrible since you, like you said, you paid money and you completed a program, but doesn't sound like it was a very good program.
Yeah.
Well, and to elaborate on what Ms. Waddell is saying, it sounds like what you are hoping or planning to do with urgent care with the C-arm, as Mr. Morin was explaining, it sounds like even going back to an NCT program that is currently, board approved, or even going back to an LMRT program that is currently TMB approved would not help you ultimately, if that is your goal, to perform that particular action in
Right.
the facility.
Back in February, that was the plan of the C-arm. Now, the facility that they're moving to has an X-ray machine. It's not the fluoroscopy. They were buying one, and then now it's just like a regular X-ray room.
Okay, so if it would just be administering, for lack of a better way of saying this, and I apologize, board members, normal X-rays, then it sounds like doing the NCT program, or going back and enrolling in an LMRT approved program would not only remedy the active practice issue because you've completely redone an entire program, but then would allow you to administer X-rays at this facility.
Okay.
But again, that will depend on what type of procedures she will be doing with urgent house calls. Because she needs to really look at the matrix very closely and see what she is allowed to do as an NCT, because just because you get an NCT license does not mean you can go out and do any type of X-ray that's out there. You're still very limited as to what you're allowed to do by law. So I would do quite a bit of research to figure out what you're gonna be allowed to do before you would take something like that.
Okay.
So board members, at this time, there was no recommendation made to this applicant because per your matrix, it does require a referral to the committee if over 5 years for this particular licensure application. So hasn't been a recommendation made, therefore it's not an appeal. It would really be you as a board, how you want to move forward with this licensure application.
So the application is specifically for NCT, because it was a little bit confusing there where I guess she's certified to do NCT, but she also took not certified. She finished a course that was both NCT and LMRT, but because she didn't sit for the LMRT exam, she never achieved her official LMRT status. Is this correct?
Correct. She has currently applied for the NCT non-certified radiological technician permit. That is the application that is currently before you. The program Valley Grant Institute historically has been both an approved LMRT program and an NCT program. So learning more from the applicant, it sounds like she went the LMRT path at that time in 2011, but presently she has submitted for the NCT program. She does not meet the active practice requirement, and this was the automatic referral to appear before you. So that's currently where we're at right now. Your options obviously range from approve or deny, or any of the gray area in between. Ms. Yarbrough, if I'm forgetting anything regarding that, please feel free to chime in.
No, I think you've got it covered.
Well, because it's been over 10 years since completing the course and she's never been in documented active practice. I mean, I would move to deny the licensure.
I would second that motion.
Is that actually denial of, because this is not an appeal, I see. Okay.
Correct. There's been no
Thanks. I just
previous
wanna
recommendation
clarify.
made on this. So it sounds like you're determining the applicant ineligible for the non-certified radiological technician permit.
Correct. Yes.
All right, so there is a motion on the table made by Dr. Beckman and seconded by Mr. Morin concerning this appeal. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any against? All right, the motion passes.
Applicant 254A, you will receive an email from board staff that will contain a separate Teams link. You can leave this meeting and join that link to speak with board staff regarding the motion that you just heard and what to expect next regarding this current application, and they can direct you to the board rules regarding the practice as an NCT or the practice as an LMRT, so you can educate yourself more on the scope of those practices. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready for the final licensure applicant?
Could I ask one question real quick though?
Sure.
I don't know if this is the place and time to do it, but with this, the place that she was trying to get a job at, this urgent house calls, I don't know if there's any way that we can go in and do some kind of research into that facility or that employer, if they are utilizing C-arm systems and hiring NCTs to do those procedures. That's something that needs to be researched and investigated.
I agree. I didn't even know that somebody outside of a hospital setting or a day surgery or something could have a C-arm. I've never heard of one being in an urgent care center.
Well, so I mean, C-arms are very, very common, I would say. I mean, we have them in outpatient clinics that we use. And when you say you have to be an MRT to utilize it, is that independently or is that with supervision? And when you say utilize, does that mean actually active fluorowing or is that positioning the C-arm? So I don't know. I'm surprised that you have to be an MRT to do any sort of interaction with the C-arm, even under direct physician supervision, which I'm guessing if they're using a C-arm in an urgent care center, they're doing it under direct physician supervision and not independently.
But if that physician is not standing there beside them and they are actually pushing the fluoroscopic switch to produce radiation, that's something that's not allowed by an NCT.
Well, I doubt. My guess is. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and that's just my biggest question. You know, if they're positioning the C-arm, that's one thing, but they're actually operating the mechanism that controls the radiation, and that is not allowed by our bill.
Sure. I think that in general, at least in my experience, when there are C-arms being used in clinics and urgent care centers, it's the physician that's doing the fluorowing and they have an assistant who is helping position at the physician's direction, moving the C-arm up and down, backwards, forwards, collimating as directed by the physician.
So what kind of procedures are they doing at an urgent care center with fluoro? I'm just curious. I honestly didn't know this stuff went on.
I mean, I don't know what they're doing. I guess things that I would think of as like a sniff test in a pediatric patient to look for an aspirated object. You could do stress imaging to look for ligament laxity in musculoskeletal cases. Maybe they do some low-level injections for pain management in people presenting with acute injuries. I mean, these are just off the top of my head.
Because I know, at least in the area where I'm at, a lot of these urgent centers are staffed with nurse practitioners or PAs. And I honestly don't think they're qualified to be pushing the button on a C-arm. I thought you had to be a radiologist or like a cardiologist who's received training and that sort of thing, and you're badged for radiation exposure and all that before you could use any kind of fluoro.
So we're looking, and I'll jump in really quickly. We're looking at the rules right now, and there is an exception for fluoroscopy if it's performed by an LMRT with a certificate issued in the cardiovascular category. So there is the ability for an LMRT to do the fluoroscopic procedures that way. This is something that I think that you can give some direction to staff to do some research into. I don't know that we would necessarily open up an investigation into a facility
Right.
because that is outside of our purview, but that is something that GC can, I mean, this wouldn't be a licensure issue, obviously, but this is
Right.
something that GC can look into. And I mean, and I'm looking at Scott here. I mean, we could potentially do a letter to that facility, but I would be very careful how far we take that, because we don't necessarily want to get into that realm of trying to regulate the facility itself without any sort of complaint.
Well, and isn't that more under the purview of Department of State Health Services? I mean, they go in and inspect.
And they're inspecting
Equipment
the
and all.
machines and the equipment,
Right.
correct? So that's what I'm saying. We need to tread lightly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to jump in and piggyback on Ms. Yarborough's statements. Yeah. And Mr. Moran, you said, well, can we go in and look and investigate them? And Ms. Yarborough is very eloquent, and I'm not going to be as eloquent, but no, we can't without a complaint. And then even if we did, we don't have enforcement authority over the facility. So what we would end up doing is hitting the individual practitioners who might be doing it outside the scope of whatever license or permit they had, but that would not give us any authority necessarily over the facility. And we would have to look at the statutes to see if there was any aiding and abetting the unlicensed practice of, with the fluoroscopy, and then would we be looking at the supervising physician? So there's not a really good way for us to get to the facilities on these in this type of situation. And again, obviously, as Ms. Yarborough said, we can bring it to our attention. We can do some research, but really beyond that, I'm not sure if there's anything to do. If we did have a specific identified facility, then maybe a warning letter saying, hey, you've got to be sure you've got the properly licensed people. But literally beyond that, I don't know what you as a board or we as staff could do from an enforcement perspective, because you have individual licensees and not entities. So as you said, Ms. Waddell, the State Health Services Department, does some on-site inspections, looking at equipment and safety and those types of things. But as far as the individual enforcement, that comes to you, but not the facility enforcement. So there's two different jurisdictions that we have to be mindful of in going into these kinds of issues. And it is very difficult. Scopes are very difficult, as we've told you before. The other thing we are going to be looking at in the next, well, hopefully within the year, is looking at all of the rules that you have and seeing if there's some that are unnecessarily burdensome, some that need to be made more clear, so, those kinds of things, because it is a very complicated area. When they did come over, as you recall, a lot of the rules we took and just approved them as they're written by dishes, and now we are going back through with the ability to be much more educated and experienced now and mindful to see what can be simplified. What is there some things that can be eliminated? Are there things to create clarity? So we're looking at that whole analytical, or that whole analysis when we're looking at the rules and relative to what the statutes say and allow. So again, no, there may be some time for some cleanup in these kinds of issues that will be identified. And you'll see all this as a board as we move along the rule process as well.
Well, I just know there's no situation where an NCT should be using a C-arm.
Well, and we're not saying that's the
Period.
case, but unless we know and receive a
Right.
complaint about it, we are absolutely have nothing that we can do about it, because you are a complaint-driven board. We're a complaint-driven agency. So without a specific complaint, we can't go out and survey. We don't have inspection authority. We don't have survey authority. This is not the kind of authority that you all have or the statute gives to us.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Unterborn, I think we're ready for the next applicant.
Okay, this is the final licensure applicant, applicant number 2547. This is also a non-certified radiological technician applicant that has not practiced in an NCT capacity since completing the NCT program in June of 2010. She did provide a statement regarding her work history and practice plans. She says she's been employed at MCA Village Medical as a RMA and certified in DEXA scans for 13 years, where she intends to stay employed at. And she just wants to go back to performing x-rays within the office. She didn't provide proof of CE completion within the last 2 years, but she did provide a copy of a certificate of completion for 6 hours of CE in radiation safety and digital radiography issued back in February of 2014. Because the applicant had not practiced as an NCT since 2010, approximately 11 years from the date of application, she was also given the option to either appear before the board or enroll and successfully complete the NCT board approved program again to remedy the active practice. She has chosen to appear. So this is very similar to the last case. No recommendation has been made on this licensure application, so this is not an appeal. It is before you because of the active practice matrix and not meeting that requirement. So applicant number 2547, if you can unmute yourself, if you have an opening statement, you could say it at this time. And if not, then the board members can move forward with asking you questions on your application. It looks like you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So hi, thank you for meeting with me. So first of all, I started doing x-rays in 2006 when I graduated from medical assistant. They sent me to Richmond Rosenberg Occupational Center, and I was doing MA and blood drawn, and they had an x-ray tech, and they would just teach me, you know, like with the radiology. So after that, I did go take a course. That was in 2009. And then in 2009, I went to work at Memorial Clinical Associates, where I was doing x-rays. And only chest x-rays is all we did there. So I was doing the chest x-rays, and I did do my continuous education, and they paid for it. So the last time I did the continuous education was in 2014, and Memorial Clinical Associates paid for it. After that, every month I would get my little badge for my radiology. I figured everything was okay. I was working under the director of Dr. Miguel Franco, which is still here. At one point I asked, do I still have to do my continuous education? And Ms. Jean House, which was the manager, said, well, no, because we don't require it here because you're under Dr. Miguel Franco. So I continued doing radiology up until December of this past year when Village Medical took over. So they bought all the doctors out. All the doctors are still here. And they gave us our files. Well, when I went in my file, I was surprised to see where they had sent the little coupon for me to do my continuous education. But apparently, because they paid for it, it went to their address. So I was never told. So Village Medical, actually, you have to be licensed. So they then hired on a licensed radiologist here, which I was working under also. So I was actively doing x-rays up until December of this past year, only chest x-rays. I'm not doing them now. Right now I'm doing the nurse's desk, medical assistant. I'm an RMA, and I do bone densities. So I basically just want to get back into doing them basically when she's on lunch or when she goes on vacation. The same doctors are here. Dr. Miguel Franco, which was the director, is still here at the office. I've been here 14 years. Never had a complaint. The doctors think highly of me. Even the x-ray tech here that is licensed, when she has problems, she comes and asks me. We only do chest x-ray. Everybody else gets sent out to Memorial MRI and Diagnostics here in Houston. I did try to go do my continuous education this past December at the X-Ray Academy here in Houston, but because of COVID, they weren't doing it. And so then that's when they told me maybe because I've been doing them, maybe that could be considered as some continuous education, or I could use those hours here under the licensed radiology that we have here right now. So I'm just asking if I can be recertified, or what do I need to do to continue my license?
So have you ever had an NCT license in Texas?
Yes, it was in, I took the last one was in 2014, and I had a license under the Texas Medical Board too. I did have a license number under there, but I wasn't aware, when Memorial Clinicals, they kind of like, I guess, lied to me, you know, because they didn't require it. So they just made me think that my continuous education was being done there. And then I found out different this past December when Village Medical took over. So I was actively doing x-rays since all the way back until December when I found out, then I stopped. I didn't do them anymore here.
And just to clarify, applicant 2547, having a permit or a license to practice is not the same thing as doing continuing education.
Okay,
so,
then I didn't know, yeah.
Okay, so either with DISH prior to this license type being transferred over to us in September of 2015, did you have an NCT permit or any type of license or permit to practice issued by DISH?
No, I don't know who that is.
Okay.
No.
And then since we've now taken over in September of 2015, our records didn't show that we have ever issued you a permit or a license of any type to practice. Have you ever received anything like that from us?
From DISH?
No, from us.
Department of State Health Services, just to clarify, the Department of State Health Services.
Apparently the last one I showed that was in my file was 2014, whenever I did the, certificate of completion at the X-Ray Academy of Texas. And then through the Texas Department of State Health Services. And there was a license number on here. That was 2014.
Okay, and that was included as part of your packet, and the certificate is there for board members to see, and it says 6 hours of continuing education, radiation safety / digital radiography, administered by the X-Ray Academy. So that is just a continuing education, not a certificate to practice, just to clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm confused. Did you have a Texas license as an NCT? And
Yes.
if so, when?
It was back in 2010, because they picked it up and they told the Texas the board, they told me my number. If I can find it. They told me when they picked it up, they even told me what my number was, what my old number was.
When who picked it up?
When the Texas board.
Oh, okay. When you so you got a letter when it switched over.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. They had given me my number, and then I took the exam, the exam that you take on the Texas board. I took that test and I passed it, and then I paid whatever I had to pay, and then I tried to go forward from there to see what I had to do next.
So Grace, do we not have any record of her?
I'm not finding any record. Could you provide that number for me, please? And my staff can do that research.
Oh God, let me
Because
find
we showed that you submitted an application back in April of 2020
Mhm.
for an NCT, but that expired after a
Right.
year. And then you submitted this current application in December of 2021.
Okay,
So that's
give me just-
currently.
gi- okay, give me just a minute. I'm at work right now. Let me go get my file. Hold on just a second.
Thank you.
And Ms. Underborn, it looks like I'm communicating with Sarah on this. It looks like there's a dishes number on the CEU certificate. Is that an approval for the NCT program or?
Oh, are you referring to the TP 106?
I think so.
I believe that is the
Yes.
number associated with X-Ray Academy to provide CEUs.
Okay.
That doesn't look like a familiar nomenclature for NCT permits back when DISH was authorizing them. So I believe that's just
Thinking, but just trying to figure out what this number is.
and we have multiple board staff currently working
me
on this
get it.
situation.
Miss Unterborn, this is Shyla Parker. Hello. I
Hi.
had a before they have to complete the CEU hours. Because if she did complete it, some years back, I was just wondering how long it's good for.
We've
so-
always had to, oh, I'm sorry. We've always had to renew our, any licenses every 2 years.
Correct.
Every 2 years. Okay. Thank you.
So this is the Texas Board of Medical Radiology Technology test that I took in 2021. And then my old, according to the Texas Board, my old expired license number was 159922. So basically what I got, I guess, to be honest with you, what I was misinformed, I guess, or maybe lied to when I was with Memorial Clinical was the every 2 years. So apparently when the certificate came, they didn't give it to me. It came to the company, I guess, because they paid for it. So they never told me. And so when I found out in December, that's when I started trying to get everything back. And this was the exam I took in 2021, which was just on the board, on the website that I passed.
Okay,
And then
that looks like it may be our jurisprudence exam certificate. What was the date that was completed?
12/27/21.
Okay, that matches with the date that we received your scores for the
right.
jurisprudence exam,
Right.
the
Okay.
JP exam.
Yes,
That's a requirement as part of the licensure process, just
Okay,
like a
yes.
birth document is, a transcript, et cetera. So that's not the same as a permit or a license to move forward with practicing as
No, yes.
an
ma'am.
NCT.
That's
So
right. And I haven't done these since December. I stopped in December when I found all of my stuff in the old file that I wasn't told. So I stopped then.
But were you not receiving any, I mean, because normally any licensing paperwork goes to your home. I mean, that's your responsibility to keep
Right.
up with.
That's what I
You-
thought. And I
You
didn't get anything.
submit, they send the renewal notices to your home address, not to where you work.
Well, it's funny because
And-
when we opened up the file, the little cardboard, it was like a little cardboard like this. And it was for continuous education, actually from the Avery School, which I have this one, but that one's of course old. From the Avery School, it was here at my job, and I was like, I don't know why.
But
The only thing I could
continuing
think of was because they
education,
paid it. Yeah.
but continuing education is not the same as your license from the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And board members, board staff has found some information. So this applicant did have a dish number, the 159922 that she has stated that was issued on July 12th, 2010. It expired November 30th, 2013. This was obviously 2 years prior to the transition to the Texas Medical Board. So She was never sent renewal from
Never
us as
got it.
part of that transition because the license had already been expired for 2 years. So this is her historic history with DISH, the Department of State Health Services. Again, that expired in November of 2013. And then moving forward now with the Texas Medical Board, she sent one application in April 2020. That expired after a year. This is her second application submitted in December 2021. That is here before you. And the certificate that she is referencing is a licensure requirement as part of the process. I hope that clears that up.
Thank you.
So essentially, she hasn't had a license since November of 2013.
Correct. That is what the records seem to show.
And it says 2013. Have you been taking x-rays?
I was taking
chest
some,
x-rays?
I was taking chest only with Memorial Clinical Associates under a director because they didn't require it. And then they made me think that, you know, that was my education thing. That's my fault, but I haven't been doing them since. I stopped. Whenever I found out everything, I stopped doing them completely.
And the formal evaluation that board staff did get for work history that an applicant reports, we did get one from MCA/Village Medical, where they put her applicant's title or position is medical assistant. And that's all that they put. They didn't give any indication that there was also an element of practicing. So that is why, but they just indicated she's only been a medical assistant from July of 2009 until present. So board staff is looking at only been a medical assistant practice with administrating radiation. Therefore, you don't meet the active requirement. And given the amount of time that has been since you completed the program in 2010, there was no proof through the documents that we collect that you had been doing otherwise. That is why she's been not meeting that active practice requirement.
Right. And to be clear, because she's Dr. Khan, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I was just going to say because I myself am confused. So everything that was provided to us in the licensure application did not indicate active practice. Correct. Now, applicant, I trying to be clear, and members, you can stop me. Maybe I'm just not getting it. You have put in applications, you were doing some chest x-rays until you found out you couldn't. When did you stop doing them because you found out you couldn't? Just a day, not who transitioned, what, when, where? When was the last time you shot an x-ray?
This past December 2021.
Okay, and okay. So as of December 2021, you became aware, you made your application, you stopped doing x-rays, right? You haven't been doing that. Okay. Prior to that, let's just take it back for the purpose of doing from, let's say, 2018 to the 2021 cutoff date, doing radiology at this clinic.
At the clinic for aware kids, I'm an MA, so I do the nurse's desk also because we sit at the desk.
I don't want to know about the nurse's desk. We want to know about radiological procedures.
Bone densities and chest x-rays when needed.
Okay, and about how many, was there any basis on which you were shooting chest x-rays? I mean, was it one a week? Was it a couple times a month? What was it?
It was usually a couple times a day.
Okay.
But
so okay.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's so. So we were doing that. Now, do you have any explanation as to why the Form L that Ms. Hunter-Born just referred for your is you get your employers to send in and say, you know, applicant's been doing X, Y, and Z for us. She does wonderful. She does this, she does that, etc. Do you know why they didn't say anything about those radiologic procedures, or do you have any idea? Now, I know you're just guessing. You can't get in their mind, but that question needs to be asked to get it in front of our board because they are. I don't want to speak for the board because they make the decision. I do not, but I'm confused. So
Right.
I just want this clarity so the board knows what they're dealing with. And that wasn't meant derogatorily. It's just kind of all convoluted here.
Give me 1 second, because I know
Yes,
there
ma'am.
was a letter that was sent in by a Victoria McCrae. I'm looking for it stating that I was working under a licensed radiologist. Let me see, it's under showing improvement. That was sent in on January the 6th, stating clinical support medical assistant and x-ray technician. Since July 27th of 2009, I've been working in shadowing environment with 2 different licensed x-ray techs, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And she has been trained and involved in Avery x-ray techs as well as bone densities. And this was faxed over also.
Okay. So it says shadowing, but you were actually shooting, because shooting films is not the same as shadowing.
Right. Sometimes
okay.
I would shoot them and yes.
Okay.
And board members, that is now what the applicant is referring to. That is now in the committee summary and late updates folder. The formal evaluation, in addition to that letter that the applicant was just quoting from, that's page 4 of that document. So if you refresh your Laserfiche, you can see what we saw.
Okay. So Dr. Khan and board members, I sorry I jumped in, but I couldn't understand it. You probably all knew exactly what was going on. I was confused.
No.
Going to leave it at that. I did get clarity of what is going on, what was going on, maybe what should not have been going on, but I mean, all of that is what it is. So I hope that helps a little bit. I'm going to step back out of this now. Dr. Khan, again, I apologize for kind of jumping in, but I didn't know what else to do. It seems quite convoluted in my opinion.
Well, I'm still stuck on license expiring back in 2013 and no license since then. So no x-rays should have been taken at all since 2013.
Well, I stopped as soon as I found out, but I mean, I didn't, I guess I was misinformed with the previous company, the previous one. So I apologize for that. I don't know if I need to go back or what, what do I need to do from here?
Yeah, so what I was, no, I'm sorry, Scott. No, so this is what I was going to say. I mean, in all fairness to you, it's a confusing situation for us, and your employer may have been partially at fault from what you're saying, but the onus of having a license to practice falls on you. Fortunately, with the documentation we don't have documented CUs. You didn't have an active license, and we don't have actual documentation of you actually taking the x-rays. So this board can only make a determination based on the facts that we have, fortunately.
Okay.
And so what are our options?
So as previously stated, there has been no recommendation made on this application prior to this appearance. So it's not an appeal or anything like that. It's really up to the board members to decide how you want this outcome to show. Either approve, deny, and then everything in between. Agreed order, remedial plan, some sort of remediation, et cetera. So it's really how you want to handle this licensure application, now hearing from the applicant, and then the documentation that was in the packet that's been provided for you.
Mr. Moore and Dr. Khan, I see Mr. Moran's hand up, and Ms. Underborn, just because we've covered a lot of ground, the application is for what? An NCT registry, an LMRT? What is it for? So
it's for an NCT.
Understands. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Moore?
We're ready for a motion.
please go ahead.
I would like to move that we deny the request for renewal of license of NCT license without the applicant completing a board-approved NCT program.
I second that motion.
All right, we have a motion on the table made by Mr. Warren denying the application and recommending that a full NCT course be retaken, and seconded by Ms. Brown.
Can I ask a question real quick before we move on?
Yes, ma'am.
So is there anything that can be done to remedy the practicing without a license? I mean, I think that needs test also.
And Ms. Brandt, what you can do, okay, you've got a motion, you've got a second. Has there been a vote on it? I'm sorry, I was, okay. If Ms. Brandt, you think something should be done to address that, right? And again, Ms. Yarbrough and Ms. Tuthill, I think what you could do is you could offer an amendment to the, well, since it's a denial, there's nothing to do from that particular standpoint. I suppose you could send to the applicant's employer now. I guess you could perhaps send them a letter and say, hey, you know, before anybody can do these, they need to have a license. You can't just allow them under a supervising physician to do so, make them aware of the rules, but there's nothing enforceable. Now, Ms. Brandt, if you had said, well, let's, you know, we'll grant you this license, then you could have done, you know, a public reprimand and that kind of thing for the unlicensed practice. But at this point, no. But again, what you could do is, as part of the denial, you could say deny and go on the record during comment period and say you're very, very concerned about the unlicensed practice, and you are hereby telling this individual out loud in a public meeting, do not practice any longer, and acknowledging that she did quit, stop the practice in 2021. But you could make that statement and then potentially give direction to issue the warning letter to her employer saying, don't continue to do this. Here's where the regulations are for your staff, etc. Something along those lines. Okay.
So my employer did come to me in December because, like I said, when Memorial Clinical Associates sold out and Village took over, they did come to me, and that's when I completely stopped. And that's when I tried to figure out what to do next. So next, what I will do is call the Avery School and get my 10-week or whatever course they need me to do. I'll get that set up. But they did come to me. In all honesty, they came to me. That's when I stopped, because they were like, this is a corporate office now, so you have to be, you know, so they came to me, and that's when I got aware of it also. And so I completely stopped. So now I just do my medical assistant here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did stop. I did stop.
So Ms. Brand, if you think that is sufficient,
and
we can just leave it at that and go with the denial. And then the applicant, once she, as she says, if she goes back through her course, she can reapply at that time. So again, if you want to just stay with the motion based on that, you can do that. Or like I said, you can, in your comment, as when Dr. Khan calls for any comment before vote, you can always make a statement if you wish. But it appears that the practice that was of concern stopped with the new employer, at least from the representations being made to us, to you today. Okay.
Yeah, they're no longer here. They sold. So I'm not going to break no laws. I completely stopped when they told me. So I will do my course again. I will sign up to do it again immediately this week. I'll sign up.
All right. So we have a motion on the table.
And there is one point before you vote on the motion that Ms. Unterborn and I were just discussing. It looks like the application doesn't expire until December. So if she were to complete that program before December, another option would be to defer the decision on this particular application until such time as she completes the program, and that way the application itself wouldn't be terminated with the finding of ineligibility. So she wouldn't have to apply again. Does that make sense?
Good, that's, Ms. Scarborough, that does make sense. So if it's a 10 or even a 12-week course, it could be done. So if you did defer, she submitted that, Ms. Unterborn, let's presume she does the course as she said.
I'm gonna do it.
And I know, but we have to go on the presumption, right? Because something might come up that prevents you. But if it were to be completed, then she would be qualified to be registered as an NCT. Is that correct, Ms. Unterborn?
Correct. If board staff receives a completion certificate from a TMB approved NCT program that she has successfully completed it, if it is prior to the expiration of her application, then board staff can then put her on the licensing list to receive that NCT permit. If board staff does not receive this completion certificate before her expiration date of December 18, 2022, then her application will expire. And if she wants to pursue licensure to practice in Texas, she would need to resubmit a new application, any requirements, updated documents for that, and then also
go through
be
the
subject to the
again.
same active practice requirement. Yes.
Okay. So if you want to defer, I guess we got to do the two-step again. I think we've got to withdraw the sponsor, withdraw the second, and then call for a new motion if that's what you want to do. Now, you do have the motion on board with a second, Dr. Khan. You can vote on that, and it might be cleaner to just vote, and if everybody says all against the motion, then it would fail. And then you could just propose a new motion, and that might even be cleaner. Do you agree with that, Ms. Scarborough? Do you think that may be easier? So if you like the deferral board members option that's potential, you would vote against the motion that's on the table. You would all in favor. If nobody says yay and you all say nay, the motion would fail. Then you'd have to do another motion.
All right, Mr. Moore, is that all right with you? We proceed that direction?
If that's the way you want to go.
Well, Mr. Moore, if you want to stay with your motion, then I think you can ask for your presiding officer to call a vote on your motion and see if it passes or it fails. That may be the cleanest way, sir.
I would like to call for the motion to be voted upon by the board.
Okay. For Mr. Morin's motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Who said aye?
I want some clarification. So if we vote for Scott's motion, will that not allow her to
Defer.
do the course?
Hold on. Let me be clear on this. The motion is to deny. If this motion passes that Mr. Morin sponsored and was seconded, if the motion is denied, her application's done. It's terminated. Now, can she go?
Okay.
She can go back to school and still do the 10 weeks, but then what she would have to do is reapply, repay. We would use the documents we have, but Ms. Unterborn staff would then need to get updated documents.
Okay.
If you deny Mr. Morin's motion and it fails, then someone would have to sponsor a motion to say defer for the purpose of allowing the applicant to complete the 10 weeks before her expiration in December. Okay. And then if she does that, Ms. Unterborn gets it, then she's going to get registered. You won't see her again. Am I correct on that, Ms. Unterborn?
Correct.
Okay. Does that make sense? And if you're going, and Dr. Khan, what you should do is, Mr. Morin has asked for a vote. Call for a vote by name, and because it may be a split vote, I would recommend you call each individual member separately so we can hear them and see them voting. And let's just do a poll vote in this particular case, going through your membership, calling for each one's vote on Mr. Morin's motion.
I have a question.
Ms. Brown, I think.
Yes. Okay, so what I'm trying to understand is if we leave it open then she takes the course, then all she has to do is reapply for
No, ma'am. If you defer, her application is good through the end of December. If she completes the course, she will be qualified and automatically put on the register by board staff. And the matter is resolved. She can resume her practice as an NCT within the scope of what is permitted for an NCT.
And she has until December to fulfill that.
Because that's when her application will expire, because an application is good for 1 year from the date of application, and this applicant applied in December of last year, so she's good through December of this year.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. So once again, I'll take votes by name on the motion by Mr. Moore to deny the application. All right, starting with Dr. Beckman.
I vote against.
Okay. Ms. Brandt.
Against.
Okay. Ms. Brown.
Against.
Okay. Ms. Landreth.
Against.
Okay. Mr. Moore.
In favor.
Ms. Parker.
Against.
And Ms. Waddell.
Against.
Okay, and I will vote against. So the motion fails.
I would move that this application, I'm not sure how to word this, that this,
Just defer it till
until
December
the
to see
expiration of
if the applicant can successfully complete the required NCT course. And I think
before the
leaving it at that would be
application
enough.
expires. Okay.
Yes.
I move that we defer this matter until the applicant is, if she completes a new course, then her application will be still in good standing through its normal expiration date.
I second that we defer until December.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Waddell, seconded by Ms. Brown concerning deferral to allow for completion of a new NCT course. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against?
One,
right.
yes, against.
Okay. So the motion passes by majority.
Applicant number 2547, you will receive an email from board staff that contains a separate Teams link. So you can leave this meeting and join that one. Board staff will be at that meeting to answer any questions regarding the motion that you just heard and what to expect now moving forward from your licensure analyst, and answer any questions that you may have. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for all you guys' time.
Thank you.
And I will take my course. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
That was all the licensure applicants scheduled to appear for agenda item number 7.
Okay, thank you. I do want to make a comment. I think the last two cases bring up good points, and I completely understand Mr. Morin's concerns and Ms. Brandt's concerns, because you also have employers at issue here, and there's really nothing we can do about that since we don't have that enforcement ability. But it just kind of muddies the water about where does the responsibility of the NCT end and where does the responsibility of the employer begin, and what kind of pressures are applied to some of these NCTs at their jobs to do what they're supposed to be doing. So definitely raises some concerns when we're looking at some of these rules. Scott, and Ms. Yarborough, we may need to look into something like that based on whatever the legislature allows us.
Yes, sir. And we, like I said, we are looking at the rules, and this is, this is very, very complicated when it comes to your MRTs. I mean, because you've got the limited, you've got the NCTs, you've got the full MRTs. It's much more complicated than any other license type we have. I mean, you're either a doctor or you're not a doctor, right? And licensed. You're a physician assistant or you're not, and you're licensed, right? And there's no breakdown within these. And of course, then you get MRTs, and you can be full, you can be partial, but only do, head or only chest. So it's a very complicated area the way it's structured. And again, that is one of the things we're going to be looking at. Is there a way to streamline it to perhaps get it down to one or two license types as opposed to, 7 subtypes and then the NCT, which was a hardship, and you don't have to be licensed. But we're looking at all of that as we go along. So certainly understand, Dr. Khan, and we will take that as direction.
Yeah, especially the NCT license, because historically it has been sold as a hardship, but I can guarantee you the majority of those work in small clinics, urgent cares, which are actually end up being urban. So, and
Yep.
they're doing, all kinds of procedures that we may not have anticipated. So anyway,
I
thank you.
agree.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Unterborn. So moving on to our next item, which is discussion, recommendation, and possible action regarding proposed orders offered by the executive director.
There are none.
Okay, and then moving on to report on program approvals and renewals. Looks like there's none there. And then moving on to number 11, which is cases recommended for dismissal.
Certainly, and I can walk you all through these. The first item on here are the reports for discussion. The first report is the enforcement activity report. The enforcement report is basically covers all of the boards, not just the MRT, but your data is definitely reflected here as well. What we really look for on this report is any changes that we can't explain. This is kind of the vital signs of the enforcement part of the agency. The changes that we're seeing on here over time are really mostly related to the pre-investigation process, the change in law in terms of how we handle the fingerprint reports we get when one of your licensees is arrested. We get these for all of our license types, and the way that's tracked now has led to a drop in the number of open investigations and the number of ISCs, and somewhat in terms of the number of actions taken by the board. The work is still done on those cases. We get those reports regularly. They're reviewed several times a week, and we are tracking those. And that would actually take me to the next report, which we have in the file, which is the case of the criminal case review report. You didn't have any warning letters, and you don't have any over 1 year case reports are not here for you all, but the criminal case review report is here, and that kind of gives you a summary. We reviewed over 500 cases last year for all license types, as we're not just your board members, licensees. And so we did review over 500 of those. Those are sometimes dismissed with no action if there's not anything we can do with it. If it does involve something related to drugs or alcohol, we do provide information or can do direct referrals to the physician health program. On cases that result in something that looks like it may pose a continuing threat to public safety, we can open those and look at them right away. And then finally, on some that are not real clear how connected they are to practice, we do send a letter to the licensee letting them know we are aware of the arrest. They have responsibility to keep us updated if they're found guilty or plead guilty. So those are the reports. If there are any questions on any of those, I can answer those. Okay. There are no new members of the expert panel for your board to consider, and there are no probation appearances, no rules, and no follow-up files. So that would bring us to 11F, which are the cases that are recommended for dismissal. These cases are broken down by individual members of the Discipline and Ethics Committee. And so the way we do this is we'll go member by member. If you have any cases that are assigned to you that you would like to pull for discussion, you can certainly discuss them when we get to your cases. If you don't have any you want to discuss, you can make a motion to dismiss. And that would be the opportunity too for any other board member. Even though these cases are assigned to one board member, it doesn't mean that the others can't ask questions or make motions or amendments to motions. So all those options are there, but they are for simplicity's sake, they are assigned to one review member. So the first set would be under non-standard of care, cases assigned to Ms. Landreth. And Ms. Landreth, you do have 2 cases in the investigations that were closed for lack of evidence section. Do you have any that you would like to pull for discussion?
No, no need to discuss.
Okay, and then would you like to make a motion to dismiss the cases assigned to you?
Yes, I move to dismiss those 2 cases.
Okay, and for the record, those are cases 19-7281 and 22-53, I'm sorry, 22-5523. And then Dr. Khan, you can call for a second if you'd like.
Could I get a second to Ms. Landreth's motion?
You're still on mute though.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to dismiss the cases that were assigned to Ms. Landreth, made by Ms. Landreth, and seconded by, was that Ms. Waddell? Yes, okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes.
Aye.
Thank you. The next set of cases are assigned to Dr. Beckman. Dr. Beckman, looks like you have basically 1 in each category. So are there any of the cases that are assigned to you that you would like to pull for discussion?
No.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion on the 4 cases that are assigned to you?
I'd like to move dismissal of all 4 cases.
All right.
I'll second.
All right. A motion to dismiss cases assigned to Dr. Beckman by Dr. Beckman and seconded by Ms. Landreth. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. My computer is freezing, so I'm not sure. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't hear anybody. But the next set of cases are assigned to Dr. Khan. And Dr. Khan, you have cases in the J&F section and the ISC panel dismissal section, just the 2 cases. Are there any that you would like to pull for discussion?
No.
Okay, and if you would like to make a motion to dismiss the cases assigned to you.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to dismiss the cases assigned to me.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion made by myself and seconded by Ms. Waddell. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay. There are no cases assigned to Ms. Lutz. For Mr. Morin, you have cases assigned to you in the J&F section, just the 1 case. Would you like to pull the case for discussion, or are you ready?
No, I'm ready. I'd like to move for the dismissal of this case.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion to dismiss the cases made by Mr. Morin, seconded by Ms. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All against? Nay. Okay. The motion carries.
Okay, and there are no appeals for today's meeting, so that would end agenda item 11.
Move on to agenda item number 12, which is of defaults.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, this is Amy Swanholm, litigation manager. I'll be presenting the default today. You have in front of you a proposed default order for Matthew Ryan Moore. This case was filed at SOA. It relates to impairment and a failure to comply with the Texas PHP program. The hearing on the merits was held on July 12th, 2022. The judge issued a default dismissal recommendation order at that time. They did find that notice was sufficient in order to take that default action. The board provided notice of today's consideration on September 1st to respondent. And you have that proposed default order for you in your backup materials to review. We don't have any response or appearance by the respondent in the SOA proceeding, or to date, no filings, no requests today to reconsider. So you do have that in front of you, and if you would like to take action, you would need a vote.
All right, any motions by the
I move that we approve the determination of default on, do I need to give that number?
You can actually state the name on this one. This is a
Okay.
public document.
Okay, for Matthew Ryan Moore.
I second the motion.
Second. Mhm.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the determination of default order on Matthew Ryan Moore made by Ms. Waddell and seconded at the same time by Mr. Moran and Ms. Parker. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All against? All right, the motion carries. Next, we have item number 13, consideration and approval for proposal for decision, which there are none. Moving on to item number 14, consideration and approval of modification request / termination request orders.
This one would require a vote to approve the recommendation of the granting of the termination of the order. And on these are confidential at this point, so please don't refer to the licensee's name.
I move to approve the recommendation for the termination of the order, agreed order.
I second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion on the table to approve the termination request made by Dr. Beckman and seconded by Mr. Moran. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries. Next item is item number 15, discussion, recommendation, and possible action regarding agreed orders. There are two.
I move that we approve the proposed agreed orders.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to approve the agreed orders, the two of them together, made by Ms. Waddell and seconded by Mr. Moran. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries. All right, then we have next item is discussion, recommendation, possible action regarding remedial plans. There are none. Next item, discussion, recommendation, possible action regarding mediated settlement orders. There are none. Next item, discussion, recommendation, possible action regarding non-pro-tunc orders. There are none. Next item, 19, consideration and approval of cease and desist orders. There are none. Next item, 20, consideration and approval of agreed resolutions. There are none. Next item, item number 21, consideration and approval of consent orders. There are none. Next item, 22, report on cease and desist orders approved by executive director. There are none. Next item, 23, report on automatic orders actions. Looks like there's none. Next item, 24, discussion, recommendation, possible action regarding the proposed amendments to 22 TAC, Chapter 194, Medical Radiologic Technology. There are none. Next item, discussion, recommendation, possible action regarding the adoption of proposed amendment to 22 TAC, Chapter 194, Medical Radiologic Technology. There are none. And that moves us to item number 26, which is open forum for public comments.
I would note there is nobody in the physical location with us today for public comment, but if there is anybody out there online that would address the board, this is the opportunity to do so. We do allow 3 minutes for public comment, so we just want to wait a minute to see if anybody needs to take themselves off mute and identify themselves. Last call for public comment. I think you can go ahead and move on to the next agenda item, Doctor.
All right, thank you. We will move on to item number 27, consideration and approval of the June 24, 2022 board meeting minutes and action items.
I motion to approve the meeting notes. Well, let me say it all together. The June 24th, 2022 board meeting minutes and action items.
I second.
All right, excellent, thank you. So we have a motion to approve the June 24, 2022 board meeting minutes and action items by Ms. Parker and seconded by Dr. Beckman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. And moving on to item number 28, drum rolls. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I
I
second.
Okay, so motion to adjourn made by Ms. Waddell, seconded by almost everybody. All in favor? Aye, and motion carries. And we are hereby adjourned for the board meeting of the Texas Board of Medical Radiologic Technology at 10:52 a.m. on September 23, 2022. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Thank
y'all.
you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.